Good afternoon and welcome everyone. My name is Kim Ricketts and I manage the Research Visiting Speaker Series. Today I'm thrilled to welcome Ian Murdock here to research. He is the Chief Technology Officer of the Linux Foundation. He's going to be discussing the rise of Linux and the open source movement, then about his current work with the Debian project, and finally he's going to discuss with us and in conversation with us and questions at the end about open source and how perhaps open source and Microsoft can cohabit, perhaps even share the technological world. So, Ian Murdock.
Thank you. How much time do I have here?
I would say about a 35, 45-minute talk and then Q&A, so
okay.
We're here till 5.
Okay. All right, so this is, I mostly talk off the cuff, and I'll probably wander around here a bit, so I hope that's all right in the back. So let me start off with a quick introduction. So I'm Ian Murdock, as she said, and I've been using and developing on and advocating Linux for just about as long as it's existed. And so basically this is my story, right? How I came to discover Linux and what sorts of things that I found when I discovered it, and what kinds of things that can teach all of us, right? That's primarily what I spend my time thinking about these days. And more recently, I'm the Chief Technology Officer of the Linux Foundation.
It was 1993. Apple launched the Macintosh LC3 and the Macintosh Color Classic. The software house iSoftware released Doom. Microsoft introduced the first version of Windows NT, and Debian, which would become the most influential and authoritative Linux distribution, saw the light of day. Debian was officially founded by Ian Murdock on August 16, 1993. At that time, the concept of a Linux distribution was still in its infancy. Debian was chosen as the name because it included the name of Ian's girlfriend, Deb, and his own. Ian Murdock envisioned Debian as an openly developed project in the spirit of Linux and GNU, and aimed to create a distribution that would be meticulously assembled and maintained. The Free Software Foundation's GNU project sponsored Debian for its first year, from November 1994 to November 1995.
The Debian GNU/Linux distribution, and I erased SUSE and installed that instead. Because that way, I knew that although Debian's site includes non-free software, they have carefully separated the free from the non-free. So I knew that by saying don't include any of the things in the non-free category that I really would get all free software.
The initial releases of Debian were marked by rapid development and expansion. Debian .01 was released in September 1993, followed by several 0.9x versions between 1993 and 1995. The first stable version, Debian 1.1, was released on June 17, 1996. This version laid the foundation for Debian's future with its rigorous packaging and dependency management system. Buzz was the first release to fully embrace the Debian packaging system, which laid the foundation for the robust package management that Debian is known for today. This system allowed for easier installation, upgrading, and removal of software packages. Debian was the first Linux distribution to adopt the concept of a stable release. The tradition of using Toy Story characters as codenames began with this release. The codename Buzz was chosen after Buzz Lightyear, the Space Ranger character. This marked the start of a long-standing tradition that continues to this day. The choice of Toy Story characters as codenames is attributed to Bruce Perens, who succeeded Debian founder Ian Murdock as the Debian project leader. Bruce Perens worked at Pixar, the studio that created Toy Story, and he introduced this fun and whimsical naming convention to the Debian community. Debian Rex 1.2 was released in December of the same year and adopted an early version of the X Windows system. providing a graphical user interface for those who wanted to use Debian as a desktop system.
Now called open source. How did that begin? Who began that?
Well, it actually began with the start of computers, because at that time, software was just passed around between people. And I think it was only
Bruce
like
Perens
in
is a
the
prominent
late
figure in the free and
70s,
open
early
source
80s,
software movement.
that people started
In 1997,
really
he laid the
closing
foundation
up
for the
their
creation of
software
the
and saying,
Debian
"No,
Free
you can
Software
never go look
Guidelines,
at the source code.
DFSG.
You can't change this software.
The
even
DFSG
if
are a
it's
set of
necessary."
guidelines that define what constitutes free software in the context of the Debian project. These guidelines were written by Bruce Perens and adopted as part of Debian's social contract, aiming to ensure that the software distributed by Debian remains free and open, maintaining transparency and freedom of use for users. Those principles were used as bases for the open source community. In the same year, Bruce Perens created SPI, Software in the Public Interest. SPI is a nonprofit organization created to assist free and open source software projects, providing legal, financial, and organizational support. SPI aims to help free software development communities achieve their goals, allowing projects to focus on software development without worrying about administrative issues. SPI is governed by a board of directors elected by the organization's members. Members include developers, contributors, and supporters of free software, all engaged in the active governance of the organization. SPI is known for its transparency in managing funds and resources, publishes detailed financial reports, ensuring that donations are used appropriately to support affiliated projects. To date, many open source projects are members of SPI. The most relevant ones are Arch Linux, LibreOffice, and PostgreSQL. Debian Bo 1.3, released on June 5, 1997, was an overall improvement of the previous version and, for the first time, adopted early versions of the GNOME and KDE desktop environments. Although not fully matured, early versions of the GNOME and KDE desktop environments were beginning to be packaged, showcasing Debian's commitment to providing a comprehensive desktop experience. Continued to grow. Ian Jackson became the project leader in 1998, and Debian 2.0 Ham was released in July 1998, introducing the glibc2 libraries and supporting over 1,500 packages. 1999 was an epic year for Debian. Richard Ackerman became the project leader, and in this year, epic things happened for Debian. Debian 2.1 Slink, released in March 1999, brought official support for Alpha and Spark architectures and introduced the apt package manager interface. It included several command line tools such as apt-get and apt-cache, which allowed users to install, remove, and search for packages easily. These tools quickly became popular among Debian users for their ability to resolve dependencies and manage packages efficiently. In the early 1990s, package management on Linux was a challenging task. Users had to manually download and install software, often dealing with complex dependencies. Debian, founded in 1993 by Ian Murdock, aimed to simplify this process with the introduction of the DPKG system. The development of APT began in earnest in 1997 by the Debian project team, including developers such as Jason Gunthorpe, Brian White, and others. The goal was to create a tool that could handle dependencies automatically and provide a more user-friendly interface for package management. APT revolutionized the way software is managed on Debian-based systems, transforming a complex and error-prone process into something accessible and reliable. By automating dependency resolution and providing a suite of powerful tools, APT has played a crucial role in the success and popularity of Debian and its derivatives. Today, it remains a fundamental component of the Debian ecosystem, embodying the principles of simplicity, efficiency, and community collaboration. This period also saw the formation of Debian-based distributions, reflecting the openness and flexibility of the Debian project, which allowed other developers to create their variants. The most notable among the early Debian-derived distributions was Ubuntu, but there were other smaller distributions born before it. One of the first Debian-derived distributions was Storm Linux, launched in 1999. Storm Linux was developed by Stormix Technologies, a Canadian company. This distribution was designed to be user-friendly and to provide a more accessible desktop experience while maintaining Debian's robustness and stability. Unfortunately, Stormix closed in 2001 and Storm Linux was no longer maintained. Another Debian-derived distribution was Libranet, created in 1999 by John Danzig. Libranet was one of the first distributions to offer graphical configuration tools and a user-friendly interface, making Debian more accessible to new users. Libranet gained a devoted user base, but development ceased in 2005 after John Danzig's death. Today, Debian has more than 100 derived distributions and is the most widespread Linux system in the world. If a program package exists, it's likely in .deb format. The unstable version of Debian, often called SID, was formally recognized and used from 1999. SID is named after the bad kid character in the movie Toy Story, in line with Debian's tradition of using movie character names for its releases. SID is the branch where active and continuous development occurs, and new packages are introduced before migrating to more stable versions. The first official Debian logo, introduced around 1999, was designed by Raul Silva. This version of the logo featured the now famous swirl, which was a simple yet elegant representation of Debian's identity. The swirl symbolized freedom and the dynamic nature of the Debian project. The swirl design has been subject to various interpretations over the years. Some people see it as a magical swirl, reminiscent of a genie emerging from a lamp, symbolizing the power and freedom that Debian offers. Others view it as a spiral galaxy, representing Debian's far-reaching influence in the software universe. Red was chosen for the Debian swirl to symbolize energy, passion, and the pioneering spirit of the Debian project. It's a bold color that stands out and signifies the project's commitment to innovation and excellence. A popular myth is that the Debian swirl was inspired by the swirl on the chest of Buzz Lightyear, a character from the Toy Story movie. While this makes for an interesting story, there is no official confirmation of this connection. The resemblance is likely coincidental, as the swirl design is a fairly common motif. Debian 2.2 Potato was released on August 15, 2000. In this release, we see the introduction of Aptitude. Aptitude was introduced as an advanced interface for managing Debian packages. It was developed as a more user-friendly alternative to the traditional apt-get and deselect. It offers an interactive mode based on a textual interface, allowing users to navigate, search, and manage packages more intuitively. In addition to these features, Aptitude also supports command line use, making it a versatile tool for both new users and experienced system administrators.
And things like that. And so there's been a lot of discussion. I don't know what the right answer is, but I don't think it's reasonable to expect that Debian will remain committed to supporting every possible architecture forever. It's one of the reasons I haven't proposed the VAX port yet. But actually, the funny story about that, the day the compact merger was publicly announced as being successful.
In 2002, Bale Garby, the project leader and a former HP Hewlett-Packard employee, used his position to promote the adoption of Debian within the company. HP officially began supporting Debian on its servers, increasing Debian's credibility and presence in the enterprise market. Debian 3.0 Woody was released in July 2002, supporting a wide range of architectures and introducing the testing distribution to streamline the release process. Synaptic was included in Debian starting with this release, providing a much-needed graphical interface for package management. Synaptic was developed by Alfredo K. Kojima and Michael Vogt, developers of Connectiva Linux. Connectiva was instrumental in the development and early adoption of Synaptic, even before it became widely used in Debian-based distributions. Synaptic was developed with contributions from the Connectiva team and was designed to work with the APT package management system, which was already in use by Debian. As a result, it provided a graphical interface that could be used not only by Connectiva Linux users, but also by Debian and other distributions that relied on apt for package management. After its initial success in Connectiva Linux, Synaptic was quickly adopted by other distributions, including Debian. In 2005, Debian created the Debian Common Core Alliance, DCCA, which was an initiative launched with the goal of creating a common base for Debian-derived distributions. The idea was to standardize a set of packages and configurations that could be shared among various distributions, improving compatibility and consistency between them. This would have benefited both developers and users by reducing differences and incompatibilities among Debian-derived distributions. Linspire, Xandros, Progeny, founded by Ian Murdock, and Sunwa Linux were part of it. Although the DCCA had ambitious goals, it did not achieve lasting impact in the Linux distribution landscape. Martin Mickelmeier became project leader in 2003 and supervised the preparations for the release of Debian 3.1 Sarge. He worked to improve the release process, introducing new practices and tools to ensure that the release was timely and of high quality. Debian 3.1, codenamed Sarge, was released on June 6, 2005. This release represented a significant step for the Debian project, bringing numerous updates and improvements over previous versions. Notably, it introduced a new graphical installer. After Sarge, the numbering of stable versions would forever abandon the use of the decimal format, with an integer assigned to each major release. Weasel was introduced into the Debian project on October 18, 2006. This web browser was born as a fork of Mozilla Firefox to comply with Debian's free software guidelines. The main reason for the fork was a legal dispute between the Debian project and the Mozilla Corporation regarding trademarks and branding policies of Mozilla. The Mozilla Corporation requires that any distribution of Firefox use the official logos and names only if strict control is maintained over changes to the source code. Debian, as a project dedicated to software freedom, could not accept these restrictions. Debian's policies require that all software in their main distribution be completely free. Since Firefox's logos and trademarks were not free, this created a conflict with these policies. The solution was Weasel, a fork of Firefox that removes all non-free logos and trademarks, replacing them with free versions. Weasel maintained all the functionalities of Firefox, differing only in branding and name. For the same issue of adhering to the DFSG in 2006, Debian decided to remove all documentation covered by the GFDL that contained invariant sections, as these sections were not modifiable and therefore not compliant with the DFSG. This led to the removal of much new documentation from Debian's main repositories until a compliant solution was found.
And then if I apt-cache search image editor, I get 22 things, but not GIMP. So, well, I mean, they kind of work, but could be improved. So there's my best favorite way, which is word of mouth. So telling each other what's the best package, and we can trade like we do in Italy with stickers of football players. I don't know if that exists only in Italy, but when we are children, we have like albums with empty spots, and you buy the stickers and you put them, and you have to complete it and trade with friends. It's pretty nice when you are like 8 years old. So we can do the same, which is fun and easy. So that's my list of favorite packages. I go.
Debian 4.0 Etch, released in April 2007, was the first to support the x86-64 architecture and included UTF-8 support and the UDEV device manager. This release marked an important milestone for Debian as it introduced the graphical installer, making the installation process much more user-friendly compared to previous versions that used only a textual interface. Debian's graphical installer is based on the Debian installation system, Debian Installer, also known as DI, which began to support a graphical interface alongside the traditional textual interface. This graphical interface simplified installation for less experienced users, improving the accessibility and appeal of the distribution. In 2008, a serious vulnerability was discovered in Debian's OpenSSL package, accidentally introduced by Debian maintainers 2 years earlier. This vulnerability made cryptographic keys generated on Debian and Ubuntu systems predictable, severely compromising security. This event led to a review of package maintenance processes and highlighted the importance of collaboration between upstream projects and distributions. The release of Debian 5.0, Lenny, in February 2009 marked a significant milestone with the inclusion of OpenJDK and support for ARM EABI. Debian 6.0, Squeeze, released in February 2011, was notable for removing non-free firmware from the main repository and introducing long-term support, LTS. This episode shows how Debian is committed to maintaining a balance between software freedom, system stability, and user security. Each controversy has helped shape the philosophy and practices of the Debian project, making it one of the pillars of the open source world. From 2010 to 2013, under the leadership of Stefano Zaccaroli, Debian introduced a collaboration with OpenStack, a cloud company, and fostered greater integration with the Ubuntu team. One significant achievement was the introduction of the DP5 file format for license descriptions, adopted by both distributions to improve the management of package license information. Efforts were also made for greater integration with other derived distributions through the Debian derivative census. In the last decade, Debian has continued to innovate while maintaining its commitment to stability and free software principles. Debian 7.0, weasel, released in May 2013, introduced support for UEFI and new architectures like ARM-HF and IBM ESA390. With the release of Debian 7, weasel, Debian seriously considered the transition from GNOME to XFCE as the default desktop environment. The decision was partly due to concerns about the increasing resource usage of GNOME 3. However, GNOME remained the default desktop environment in subsequent releases. Debian 8.0, Jessie, released in April 2015, adopted systemd as the default init system and supported new architectures such as ARM64 and PPC64-LE. A milestone for this release was the introduction of a new command called apt. The apt command was designed to unify and simplify the apt command set, combining functionalities from apt-get and apt-cache into a single command with a more consistent interface. It provides the same core functionalities but with a more intuitive syntax. With this release, the community experienced a very intense moment due to the decision to adopt systemd as the default init system. The decision caused a heated debate within the Debian community, with some users and developers preferring more traditional alternatives like sysvinit or OpenRC. The controversy was so intense that it led to the creation of a Debian fork called Devuan, which uses sysvinit as the init system. 2015 was a somewhat sad year for all Linux users, not just Debian, as the founder of the distro, Ian Murdock, died on December 28, 2015, at the age of 42. The causes of his death have not been officially confirmed, but there have been several reports and speculations about circumstances involving personal issues and interactions with law enforcement in the days leading up to his death. In 2016, Mozilla and Debian made peace and Firefox officially returned. In 2017, Debian 9, codenamed Stretch, was released. This version marked a milestone in the evolution of the distribution. Technically, it consolidated systemd as the default init system, with a broader and more complete adoption. MariaDB became the official replacement for MySQL due to concerns regarding software freedom. With Stretch, Mozilla reinstated Firefox and Thunderbird as the default applications, resolving branding issues that had led to the use of Iceweasel and IceDove. Debian Stretch solidified the project as one of the most stable and secure distributions, widely adopted in critical environments such as servers and enterprise settings. In 2018, there were moments of tension, especially with the introduction of the Code of Conduct, which formalized behavioral expectations within the community. This sparked some discussions, but ultimately made Debian a more welcoming environment for new contributors. In 2019, Debian 10 Buster was released, another significant milestone that introduced key changes. AppArmor was enabled by default to enhance system security, while support for hardware architectures such as ARM64 was further improved. A crucial change was the introduction of Wayland as the default display server for GNOME, making desktops more modern and efficient. At the community level, this period saw considerable debate regarding the direction of free software management. The project remained independent of commercial influences, preserving the integrity of its open and democratic governance. There was also intense discussion around the adoption of Systemd, with different viewpoints generating discussions about the role of modularity and flexibility in the system. Debian 11 Bullseye, released in 2021, brought further improvements in functionality and security. One of the most relevant innovations was the integration of drivers for printers and scanners that no longer required specific manufacturer drivers, thanks to the new IP-USB and SaneEscal tools, simplifying the use of hardware with free software. The move to the Linux 5.10 kernel brought support for newer hardware and performance enhancements. At the community level, Debian 11 coincided with growing debates on ethical issues concerning the relationship between free software and new technologies such as artificial intelligence and digital surveillance. The community worked to keep Debian an inclusive project focused on privacy, increasingly important themes in today's technological landscape. During this period, Debian also strengthened its position as the base for many derivative distributions, but faced challenges related to managing a vast number of packages and compatibility with emerging container-based technologies like Docker and Podman. Debian 12 Bookworm was released in 2024, introducing further improvements to Wayland and security infrastructure, with more focus on emerging technologies like containers. Support for architectures like RISC-V and ARM was enhanced, areas in which Debian had invested heavily in recent years. Most notably, a new installer was introduced, making the installation process truly simple and user-friendly. In terms of governance, Debian remains a democratic project, with the Debian project leader elected annually. The period after 2021 saw increasing involvement from new generations of developers, bringing fresh ideas and new perspectives. This was accompanied by greater attention to inclusion and diversity within the community, topics that became central to many global discussions. Debian's role as the base for many other distributions, such as Ubuntu, continues to be fundamental, with a wide range of distributions depending on Debian for their stability and flexibility. However, the project's independence has kept Debian free from direct commercial influences, a feature the community continues to consider essential. In summary, Debian continues to evolve as one of the most reliable and respected Linux distributions. Its releases have brought innovations in terms of security, stability, and hardware compatibility, while the community has navigated ethical and technical challenges, maintaining the core principles of the project. Given its history, how it has developed over time, its transparent and community-driven governance structure, and its incredibly stable and long-lasting releases, Debian is not just a distribution, it is the distribution. With more than 50,000 packages available and providing both simplicity and powerful tools for advanced users and enterprises, no one can contest this fact.
To infinity and beyond! Can.